In today's video, we're diving into the story of a shipwreck that many have never heard of, but one that shook Greece to its core. I'm talking about the SS Heraklion, a roll-on roll-off car ferry. The vessel operated between Piraeus Khania and Piraeus Heraklion from 1965 to 1966. On the night of December 8th, 1966, tragedy struck. The Heraklion capsized and sank, resulting in the deaths of more than 200 people. It remains one of the deadliest maritime disasters in Greek history. Hello everyone, it's Jamie from Old Shipping Lines. Join me as we uncover the full story of the Heraklion, from her construction and short years of service to the tragic night she was lost. The vessel began her life as the SS Leicestershire, owned by the Bibi Line. She was constructed by the Fairfield Shipbuilding and Engineering Company, a renowned shipbuilder based in Glasgow, Scotland. Let's quickly go over some of her key specifications. The vessel had a gross registered tonnage of 8,922 tons, a length of 498 feet, which is 152 meters, and a beam of 60 feet, approximately 18.3 meters. She was powered by a single propeller, allowing her to reach speeds of up to 17 knots. The vessel began her service in 1949, operating on the route between the United Kingdom and Burma. For a period, she was chartered by the British India Line to support their London to East Africa service. In 1964, she was sold to the Aegean Steam Navigation Company to operate under Tipaldos Lines, at which point she was renamed the SS Heraklion. Once Tipaldos Lines acquired the vessel, she was refitted for service as a passenger and car ferry. During the winter season, the ship could accommodate 35 trucks, each averaging 10 tons in weight. The Heraklion underwent what would be her final survey on 29th June 1966. However, at 8 p.m. on 7th December 1966, amid severe weather conditions with southeast winds reaching force 9 on the Beaufort scale, the Heraklion departed Suda Bay, Crete, bound for Piraeus. The departure had been delayed by 2 hours, allegedly to allow the loading of a refrigerator truck, which, according to many accounts, played a significant role in the events that followed. On board were 264 people, and the vessel was under the command of Captain Emmanuel Vernikos. The port authorities of Suda Bay had been closely monitoring the severe weather throughout the day and had prohibited smaller vessels from leaving. However, it was wrongly assumed that such conditions posed no danger to a ship as large as the Heraklion. That same evening, an advertisement from Tipaldos Lines was shown in several movie theaters in Athens, promoting their ships as the most luxurious, the most advanced, and of course, the safest. The Heraklion was highlighted as the company's flagship, described as the unmatched Ferry Heraklion, with a speed of 17 knots. After midnight, the Heraklion was navigating the Myrtoan Sea, battling towering waves and fierce winds that were intensifying with each passing moment. The ship rocked violently from side to side, causing passengers to stir in their cabins, with children beginning to cry. Cars were swaying back and forth, and water began to seep into the ship. At 2 a.m., halfway through the voyage and 6 miles off the small rocky island of Falconera, the refrigerator truck carrying oranges, which had either been left unsecured or loosely strapped, began slamming into the midship loading door. The door eventually gave way and swung open, sending the truck crashing into the sea, where it was discovered floating the following morning. Water rushed in through the open loading door and the Heraklion began to list. At 2:06 a.m., the first SOS message was sent. This is Heraklion. The midship door has been destroyed. The ship is in danger. Simultaneously, the list was worsening by the minute, and the ship's speed continued to drop. Officers and crew made frantic attempts to save the vessel, but their efforts were in vain as the tilt grew more severe and the ship began to sink. At 2:07 a.m., the alarm rang out. Life jackets were distributed in a rush, and lifeboats were lowered into the violent waves in a desperate bid for survival. At 2:13 a.m., just 8 minutes after the first distress call, Heraklion's radio transmitted one final signal. SOS! We're sinking. Coordinates 36 degrees 52 minutes north, 24 degrees 8 minutes east. SOS! We're sinking. Then there was silence. The SOS was broadcasted twice. The Greek Ministry of Mercantile Marine lacked the proper equipment to manage the necessary communications, and the port authorities in Piraeus, Syros, and other nearby islands reported that they were unable to provide help due to similar equipment shortages. To make matters worse, the ferry Minos, located just 24 miles from the scene, did not receive the SOS. Around 2:30 a.m., the Hellenic Coast Guard commander was notified, followed by the Minister of Mercantile Marine and the Minister of Defense. The Ministry of Defense reported that a ship from the Greek Royal Navy was stationed at Syros, but it would take about 3 to 4 hours for her to depart. Several vessels, including 2 British Royal Navy warships located northeast of Crete, received the SOS and changed course to head toward the scene. At 4:30 a.m., the RHS Syros was dispatched to sea. An hour later, the Prime Minister was informed of the situation, and the Air Force was notified. By 6:30 a.m., the Prime Minister had updated King Constantine on the disaster. At 7:20 a.m., a Douglas C-47 Skytrain departed from Elefsis Airport, followed by 2 more shortly after. The initial messages sent from the ships that reached the scene of the tragedy at 8:30 a.m. were grim. There was no trace of debris from the ship. More critically, no survivors were found. The first headlines in Greek newspapers announced that the ship had sunk with no survivors. In response, the Prime Minister declared a week-long period of national mourning. At 9:45 a.m., the first C-47 Skytrain reached the scene and spotted the refrigerator truck, while HMS Ashton also made its way there. The plane circled overhead, slowly descending to a lower altitude, when the voice of the second aircraft's pilot came over the radio, almost commanding, "Your Highness, your flight path is dangerous. Climb now." Realizing that the king was directly involved in the rescue, the captain of the Ashton radioed, "Your Highness, Ashton is at your service." The king replied, "Thank you. Please follow me," as the planes identified a few survivors and began airdropping life jackets. At 7 p.m., Leverton and Ashton arrived at the port of Piraeus, where a large crowd had gathered, eagerly waiting for news and for the rescue ships bringing survivors and bodies. Several United States Navy ships stationed in the Mediterranean at the time of the sinking took part in the search and rescue operations. Officially, Out of 73 officers and crew members and 191 passengers, only 46 were rescued. 16 crew members and 30 passengers, while 217 perished. The exact number of casualties remains uncertain, as it was common at the time for passengers to board the ship without a ticket, which would only be issued once the ship had set sail. Captain Emmanuel Vernikos was among those who lost their lives in the disaster. According to reports, he was one of the first to abandon the Heraklion, leaping into the sea with a life jacket in an effort to save himself, leaving the passengers behind. His body was never recovered. Following the sinking, the pressing question quickly emerged: who was responsible? The Greek government's investigation concluded that Tipaldos Lines was guilty of serious negligence. Key failings included the absence of an evacuation drill, a delayed distress signal, as well as a complete lack of coordination in rescue efforts by the ship's officers. The company also faced charges of manslaughter and document forgery. On March 20th, 1968, after a month-long trial, 7 individuals were sentenced to prison terms of up to 5 years. Among those convicted were Haralambos Tipaldos, the company's owner, Panayotis Kokinos, the general manager, Nicholas Theodorakis, the first mate, and the head of ship inspections at the Ministry of Merchant Marine. It was also discovered that 12 out of the company's 15 ships had failed to meet international inspection standards. Most of the remaining vessels in the Tipaldos fleet were seized and sold, either scrapped or repurposed. The sinking of the Heraklion stands as a stark reminder of the consequences of negligence, poor regulation, and the human cost of cutting corners at sea. For Greece, it wasn't just a maritime disaster, it was a national tragedy that exposed deep flaws in the country's maritime industry. Though decades have passed, the memory of those lost lives remains a solemn chapter in Greek history.
And that marks the end of a video, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that would help out the channel a lot. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, as I absolutely love reading your comments. And please let me know in the comment section down below as well what ships you would like me to cover in the future. Now, be as well sure to check out our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we also recently have a website, oldshippinglines.com, where we have articles of the ships we cover and we have book reviews as well. I think you will enjoy the website very much. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day, wherever you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.